a couple of questions before we close out here, because this is a topic of great interest to me. Mr. Davis, obviously this agenda that was at work cost you a lot, critical resources for your publication, your family. Given organizations like, I mean, there's so many of these that we just do not have time to go into them. I mean, the truth of the matter is what was uncovered was that, you know, we took their deposition. The CDC had approved words and phrases that social media companies could use in this secret portal that was established between the government and these social media companies conveyed this. And if people utter this phrase, I mean, this is sort of like, this is prior restraint, sort of like, this is what you will take down ahead of time. CISA was very much involved in this. You have an alphabet soup of agencies most people have never heard of that were weaponized against millions of voices in this country. We talk about President Trump a lot, but there's just a lot of just people who were online who had questions about forced masking of kids or the vaccine mandate, all those sorts of things, and they were throttled or taken down. So given what you know about organizations like the Election Integrity Project, that's another one, in collaboration with CISA and receive taxpayer funding, how are these NGOs still working currently to harm individuals from speaking their mind, particularly conservatives?
Yeah, it's a great question. The thing about these censorship tools and technologies and efforts is they're a little bit like injecting something into the body's bloodstream. They inject it in, it's in there, it's working its thing. And just because you pull the needle out doesn't mean the effects are gone. A lot of these organizations are still out there using technologies and tools that were deliberately funded and distributed by the federal government for the purpose of censoring people like me, people like Alex Berenson, people like my colleague Molly Hemingway. I don't know if we will ever actually be free of the effects of this censorship industrial complex that the previous administration created. I don't know if we will ever be free of the horrible effect that it created, the horrible dampening and abridgment of our speech that we were forced to endure secretly for years, and the extent of which we still don't fully know.
Mr. Berenson, I want to ask you, what is the most, in your kind of review of all this stuff after the fact, what's the single, I mean, it's hard to probably pick one, what's the most shocking thing that sort of you uncovered or found out about this whole thing, your experience?
That the White House would directly target me as an individual, you know, and again, RFK. I think the White House, the federal government has tremendous power. It's more than, it should go out there and say what it thinks, and if it wants to promote masks or whatever it wants to promote, obviously it has every right to do that. But to target individuals or target entire classes of speech, I just don't understand how anybody thought that was okay. And clearly, I'll tell you actually what the most stunning thing was. The companies didn't like it. Okay, yeah. You had private companies saying, hey, we're worried about the First Amendment. You had a British politician, the former deputy prime minister of Britain, saying to the White House, I think there's a problem here. And the White House said, oh, no, don't worry about it.
And then lastly, then I'll get to Senator Hickenlooper. Mr. Volak, I want to ask you, the NIST AI risk management framework guidance advises developers, this is a government agency, advises developers to mitigate risks related to, quote, harmful bias and content that may not, quote, distinguish fact from opinion or fiction. From a First Amendment perspective, what is the danger of the government suggesting that these AI companies or other platforms should filter out, quote unquote, harm or quote unquote bias?
Well, if the government, if the government were to mandate that AI companies restrict their outputs in particular ways, I think that would violate the First Amendment, partly because of the rights of the companies, but partly because of the rights of users. Users as listeners, users as people who would want to use the AI to create their own speech. At the same time, when it comes to government procurement decisions, government needs to get AI for its own purposes, it has to insist that the AIs provide accurate information.
You understand the danger of that, though,
There's
right?
definitely a danger, but at the same time, again, the government as buyer, the purpose of AI is to provide accurate information. Social media, I think the main purpose is to provide information that users supply. It's to provide, I think, should be a largely unfiltered channel.
A pass-through platform, which is why they're given the Section 230 protections in the first place, correct?
Well, I do think that is a good model as a pass-through platform. But AI cannot be to be effective a pass-through platform. It has to make decisions that we hope are decisions in favor of more accurate information. Otherwise, the government, as user of AI, will be constantly deceived by it. So I think in this procurement capacity, the government needs to be able to insist that the AI companies do what it takes to provide more accurate information and to fight, indeed, misinformation in their own output. That is something that is required. And indeed, AI companies don't have Section 230 immunity in that
correct.
Kind of context.
And I suppose I think this is going to be a big issue, whether you call it woke AI, whatever. The previous administration, one of the untold stories to lock in, and I actually agree with Mr. Kimmelman on this point, to lock in the incumbents and the monopolies in exchange for that was to have algorithms that locked in this bias. And that is a very, very dangerous road to go down. So I don't think this is the last we're going to be, it's not really the purpose of this hearing, but since we're having the discussion, I think is really kind of an interesting and important thing. So Senator Hickenlooper.